everybody, I'm Kate Conroy.
And I'm Vinny Civitello.
And this is Other People's Business, which is the podcast from the New Jersey Business and Industry Association, the largest statewide business association in the universe. No, just the country, I promise. It's just the country. We release a new episode every other Wednesday, so be on the lookout for that. Shout out to New Jersey Manufacturers Insurance Group. They do home, auto, and workers' comp, so check them out if you need some updated coverage.
Cool. Just a couple housekeeping matters before we get started. This podcast is, and I honestly can't believe I'm going to say this, 100 episodes old today.
Yes.
So a big thank you to everyone who watches and listens, and everyone at NJBIA for being so supportive over the last 4 years.
We really, really appreciate it. Couldn't do it without you. Wouldn't want to do it without you. Thank you.
Absolutely. And speaking of 100 episodes, we've invited back one of our very favorite guests from the last few years. She was actually one of our last guests before the world shut down in person and everything. But we're so excited to have her back. Kerry Barrett of Kerry Barrett Consulting. Say hi, let the audience hear your voice.
Hi, how are you guys? And congratulations, by the way. That's phenomenal.
I know, right?
Thank you. It's kind of unbelievable, but we're very excited about it. Yeah.
I remember when Kate, you and I met at one of the chambers, and we had a meeting back when you could meet in person, back when humans were allowed to roam the earth. We're getting there again. But and we talked about the podcast, and I was so excited to be a part of it. And that had to be close to 2
years
ago.
Yeah.
I was just beginning my business, and so a lot has changed since then for all of us, regardless of where we are in business. But anyway, hats off. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. We're really excited to have you back.
Oh, I'm so excited to be here.
Yay. Okay, so our icebreaker today is, what are you currently binging? And that can be books, movies, TV, or food.
Oh, boy. So I'll tell you what, I'm going through a rebrand. And I have a photo shoot for my website coming up in a couple of weeks. And so I'm not binging on anything when it comes to food or drink, for that matter. Books there's a pile of them next to my bed that I'm sure one day I'll get to. Right now, though, I always have there's a couple that I'm binging. Morning Show, of course, right? How could I not? Dope Sick, which is amazing.
Yes.
Amazing. And what else have I been watching? I have been watching, I'm finally getting into Curb Your Enthusiasm. And I realize I'm like 20 years behind the times.
That was actually going to be my answer, to be honest with you. I was going to say I've been binging Curb. So.
Oh my gosh, I'm only into season 2, but it's so good.
First of all, it gets so much better because like those early episodes are kind of rough. It's like an improv. I don't want to say improv. They kind of. What is it when what is it when they have like a guide, but like for the most part they don't really have like a script. They got better at that over the years. So,
yeah, they're like ad-libbing. It's improv. I will not forget though, episode 1 of season 1, the what was it called? The pants tent.
Oh, yes. What I was going to say about this show is that there's so many just like relatable things, you know. This season in particular, I'm not going to spoil anything per se, but like, so I had this random issue in my life where like I've been complaining about the size of our towels forever, and finally,
I didn't know where you were going with that until you finished the end of the sentence.
Wow.
Yeah. So like, we finally like bought these like gigantic towels for the bathroom. They're like bigger than beach towels. It's amazing.
They're bath sheets.
Yeah. And they're so soft and fluffy. They're amazing, but they don't like actually dry you all that well, which is like kind of the point, right?
They sort of just smear it.
Yeah. So anyway, like
they thin out the water, and then evaporation takes place, and
that's or you just lay in it for so long because it's nice and fluffy and soft that you finally just like dry through like you said, evaporation.
It's evaporative.
But we were talking about this, and then like 2 days later, Larry David does this episode about that on Curb Your Enthusiasm, and I'm like, this guy and I. Because like it's just this season in particular, there have just been so many episodes where I'm like, holy crap! I was thinking about that like the other day. Like one of the last few episodes, we talked about how I tore down the pool in my backyard. When we bought the house, no one would insure our house because like there was a pool back there, but there was no fence around it.
Oh yeah.
And he did an episode about that like this season. And I'm like, that's such a random thing for you to make like a comedy episode about. But yeah.
But I think it's sort of the genius, right? You'll certainly, I'm sure you've noticed like parallels between the way the plots go in Seinfeld, like the show about nothing.
Yeah.
It's just a series of random sort of incidents and they all tie together.
Yeah.
But I think one of the reasons they were so successful is because it's that, random crap that happens to us where you sort of look around, you're like, am I in candid camera? No, this is just part of everyday life, but it resonates.
And like you said, like how there'll just be these 4 subplots going through, and you have no like mind for these things are going to connect at some point, and then they all converge in some brilliant way. So it's hilarious.
Well,
you actually have, if you're on season 1, you haven't gotten to the Michael J. Fox thing yet, right?
I haven't gotten there, but I did Google Larry David, and he's worth like $450 million, and now I understand why.
Yeah. No, that Fox episode, when you get there, that's one of the best comedy episodes of anything on television. Like,
he's brilliant. They're both brilliant, Michael J. Fox and Larry David. I'll check it out. And when I watch it, I
laughed until like I almost passed out. That's how funny that was.
Okay.
Wow, it's been a very long time. I used to watch Curb all the time, and then I somehow got out of the habit, and I think I'm like 3 seasons behind or something, at least. So I gotta catch up. Maybe I should do a rewatch.
There's like 20 seasons.
It's 11.
There's a lot.
11. Yeah.
Oh, then I'm more than 3 seasons behind. I am definitely.
I mean, I think it ended like a decade ago, Kate.
Yeah, it was a while, and then they brought it back.
They did?
Yeah, like
I didn't know that.
Ended it, and then like he did a revival season, and now he just kind of does it whenever he feels like it. So I think it was like 9 was before the pandemic. I can't remember when 10 came out, but it had to be before. But yeah,
blowing my mind right now. Nevertheless, I have a lot of seasons to go.
Yeah.
That's good news.
And that's a wonderful thing. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So I'm binging. I actually just finished last night Why the Last Man, which is that show on Hulu that you were talking about Kerry, have you heard about this?
No.
Why the Last Man. So imagine a pandemic, some kind of dirty bomb happens.
Try to imagine a pandemic.
Try to imagine
clear
a
your
pandemic.
mind. Suspend your disbelief.
And every mammal with a Y chromosome dies all at the same time in front of anybody who might be standing nearby, driving their cars, riding elevators, everybody. And
so animals, people, anybody who's a mammal.
Yes, anybody who's a mammal that has a Y chromosome.
I think it started with the rats. It worked its way up. Yeah.
Okay, wait, but I listen, I can't. Is the Y, are you XY? Is that like how do the chromosomes?
Y would be more associated with men. Yeah.
Right.
Okay, got it.
So men. So all the men die. Right. And if you think about how the world is organized, where there are more men in positions of power than women.
Yeah.
There are a lot of governments that have to reorganize really quickly with people who maybe don't have the experience or maybe are just, so government kind of falls apart, power plants kind of fall apart, water filtration, society kind of crumbles really quickly, and except there's one man who survives, and they can't figure out why. And also, he's kind of on the run because people are like, who is this man? How did he survive? We need to examine and experiment and figure. It is really fascinating
because at this point, there are a lot of women who just don't miss men.
Right. There's that.
So wait, is the director of this show a man or woman, and the creator?
Woman.
Now I'm curious. I'll look it up.
Okay, so the original creator of the book was a man, but the showrunner is a woman. And I think she's really done a great job of kind of retooling this from we'll call it the source material. It was a graphic novel. It went on for like 60 comic book issues, but she's done a great job of kind of modernizing it and bringing it into now. So
it's great.
Okay, you can check that out. That sounds phenomenal.
Yeah, it's not even leadership. Like you mentioned, male leadership or whatever. It's not even that. It's, how many, like, let's just say in a perfect world, the workforce is 50% male and 50% female. And let's just say in a perfect world, to run any organization, you need everybody. If there wasn't like everybody needed, then you wouldn't have those jobs in the first place. So you talk about a power plant, it's like, okay, let's just say 50% of the people from that power plant are still alive. Well, I know how to do my job, but maybe like, you know, somebody else who is needed was a man doing another job. And then like you have other things where it's like the world ended. Nobody wants to go to work anymore. So, you know, you have to convince people like, okay, but you had a really important job. You actually do need to come in and work, you know?
Yeah.
So,
Really
Sort of
interesting
where we are
conversation.
right now.
There are some interesting parallels for sure.
Yeah.
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 Really bummer thing. We're going to start a campaign on this show, Save Y the Last Man. So like 3 episodes into season 1, they canceled it. Not having anything to do with whether or not the show was good. It was just a victim of the pandemic where like they the contracts were supposed to expire like at the end of the season, but just based on when it all fell, it was the beginning. And they were like, you know what, we're not going to take a chance on this. So they're trying to shop it around, get it picked up somewhere else, and I'm wishing them all the best luck on that.
Sounds
Yeah.
amazing.
Fingers
Amazing.
crossed. Anyway,
Tell us what you do.
Me?
remind the audience. Yeah, remind the audience what you do. What do
Yeah,
you do for a living?
Benny, did you give your binge-worthy show?
Yeah, it was
He's doing
Kurt.
Curb.
You read my
Okay.
mind. Like I swear to you that's what it was going to be. And yeah,
No, you weren't just riding on my coattails of binge-worthy TV.
I wouldn't do that. I'm telling you, I've been knee deep in Curb.
What do I do? Well, I like to say that, thank you for asking. I like to say
We
that
totally
I
caught you off guard with this question. I can't believe
Is he talking to me?
Yeah.
I guess
What
he
do
is.
I
I'm
do?
the guest. We all know what Kate does. I help my clients move out of obscurity into notoriety and authority through the use of video. Now, how exactly that transpires and how we execute depends a little bit on who they are, what they do, and where they are in their career goals. If they are a high-level CEO, perhaps they need media training and PR, or maybe they want full-scale video production, like done for you video. If they are a small business owner, a solopreneur, entrepreneur, startup, they may need to understand how to take on the job of pitching themselves to media outlets or media training, or maybe they need to understand how to create great video content with their phone. Whatever sort of phase they are in business growth, the way you move from obscurity into notoriety through video varies. But overarching, that's what I do, and that's how I help them.
That is a really tight 30-second commercial. I love that. Move from obscurity into notoriety and authority, because notoriety could go one of 2 ways. Do you know what I mean? Like it could be notorious for not a great reason, but the authority piece, that's fantastic.
So, you know, it's interesting. I like to feel like I serve the person that I used to be, which is somebody who for a very long time, up to and including my days, right? So for 20 years, I was a broadcast TV news anchor and reporter and producer. I was at NBC up here in New York for a while. And prior to my TV news career, and even moving through the beginning, probably quarter of it, I was terrified of public speaking. Like, and I was I was terrible at it as well. And I knew sort of what I wanted to do, but I also think there was a part of me who recognized back when I decided I wanted to tell people stories and using video and do it on camera. There was a part of me, like this small sort of bullied person, and I was very much so, that realized video was a medium for growth for me and a medium for building my confidence. And so for me, it was, I'm going to put myself out there as a sort of a, you know what, to people who had constantly put me down and bullied me. I get to tell great stories, which I love, and also I get to grow my confidence. And so I serve business owners who were like me, maybe psychographically, right? So they feel like they're not fully self-actualized, or their business is not self-actualized, and they feel scattered and overwhelmed. And as many of us know, video is the big thing when it comes to marketing. It's sort of that, you know, tried and true method of speaking from a stage, but it's on steroids because you're doing it digitally, which means it's 24/7, 365 and around the globe. And so how do they move out of this like playing small sort of scenario that they've boxed themselves into really growing their authority and their visibility?
I love that story. I feel I had a similar, like, bullied, not a great time in high school, not comfortable public speaking, felt like I was gonna like throw up and just absolutely fall over, really. And then the older I got and the more I did it and the more practice and the more I listened, I feel like the thing that got me over the hump when I was learning how to do it was when I realized that nobody's really paying that close of attention anyway. Like, we all have this ongoing conversation in our head about picking up the kids or what to get on the grocery list, and we're paying attention, but there's always this ongoing list of things to do. And so that, combined with the fact that people in the audience are not in high school anymore, they don't want you to fail, because it would be embarrassing for them too. Like, we would all be embarrassed. Like,
is she gonna make it? Is she gonna pass out?
Right. They're rooting for you to do well, and those two things combined got me over that hump, I think.
I would say 100%. It's much harder to keep people's attention than it is to never get it from the beginning or lose it. And so, like, that is calming, especially when we're on a stage, or it can be, or maybe it's like, oh my God, nobody's listening to me. Am I terrible at what I do? It sort of depends, like, which camp you're in. You're either like, I don't care, or you get wound up in your head about it. I think with video, it's a similar thing. If you want to use video effectively, right, you're deliberately using video as a marketing tool or as a way to get yourself visibility. Let's say you want to go on the speaking circuit, like videos, whatever it is, virtual, whatever. You want some notoriety and authority. It's much harder to cut through the noise and get people's attention than it is to have them just scroll on by you anyway. That's part of the tricky. It's like, I'm going to put myself out there, and holy cow, now you're telling me people are going to watch me. That's not what I signed up for.
Exactly. Exactly. And I feel like the technology that we have, the social media that we have, makes it so much easier, but in a very scary way, right? Because you're opening yourself up to the comment feed, right? And the trolls and all of that. Yeah.
This thing is the most efficient tool we've ever had in messaging, right? This is a media hub. This is a broadcast hub. I can do everything here. I can shoot, I can edit, I can caption, I can put transcriptions in, and I can publish all pretty much within the space of 5 to 10 minutes, depending on how much production needs to go into it. And then I can comment, and I can follow up, and I can see the analytics, and I can see who's watched and all of that other stuff. On the flip side, you're absolutely right. It can be terrifying to put yourself out there, but I have to tell you, one of the stories that I use when I talk to my clients, most of us have the same fears, like the trolls are going to come out of the woodwork. And unless you are a really big household name, it's never going to be as bad as when you're posting video content, right? It's never going to be, for the most part, that entirely random people are going to stumble across something that you post on LinkedIn. If you're running ads to something, that's a different story. But my point is, I used to have we all did in the news business. We all do have the most horrific trolls that are absolute keyboard warriors and are willing to say anything, do anything, be as hateful as they want to be. I have had people mail things to me back when you could still mail things to people in a newsroom that would absolutely shock you. I'll spare you the details, but here's what I like to say at the end of my clients, or to my clients rather. At the end of the day, those people who are trolling you or sending you things, they're watching you. They know your name and you don't know theirs. So who's winning? Right? I mean, really nice. It's what it comes. Yeah. Don't let any of that garbage stop you from putting yourself out there or taking a fearful step. You have to do the things to clear the fears. That's what I say. You'll never feel completely comfortable doing it, but you just have to do a little each and every day.
I can tell you, like 100 episodes of this show, we were not confident at all in the beginning.
We weren't great.
I know, yeah. one of the ways that we got through it, like we would just say, nobody watches the show. Like when I say nobody, I mean in our minds, 0 people watched the show.
Not even
And
our parents.
yes, exactly, like no one. And so it was just like, we'll make it, we'll put it into a void, and then we will, in our minds, pretend no one saw it,
No one's
and that
watching.
helps, like
That's
you
how
just
we got through it.
pretend
Yeah.
you're just doing it. That's a lot easier when you're talking about video, like you could just look into the little, I think you actually called it the little white dot during the WBLF. You just look into the little white dot and you pretend that when it's all said and done, nobody saw it.
And that's the goal. You're talking to, generally one person who is maybe, somebody within your circle who is a friend or a colleague or a family member that sort of fits the avatar for your ideal audience member, whether it's a client or somebody who is maybe a referral source or whatever. But that person that you know personally, that you trust, most importantly, and that you like, and that also has your back, that's sort of who you're talking to. And then you shut everything else out. And not only does it have the benefit of sort of calming your mind, I'm just speaking to, I don't know, Kate, for example. Vinny, not to include you, but Kate and I, we go way back. No.
February of 2020.
That's right. Maybe 2019 even.
No, it's 2019. I'm pretty sure it was February 2019.
And let's be honest, I think we met at the same time pretty much, Vinny, as well. So, but my point is, when you talk to one person, you're much likely to connect with everybody in the audience, right? If you're trying to talk to everybody, it makes things a little bit more bland, a little bit more generic. And so, you think you're appealing to everybody, but you're not. It's like that saying, try to please everybody, you please nobody. Pick that one person and talk to them, and you will connect on a much deeper level with a larger portion of your audience.
Plus, I think there's something to be said for the idea that if you are imagining that you're just connecting with one person, it really takes the edge off. And the more relaxed you feel, the more relaxed you'll appear to be, and therefore the more confident you'll appear to be. And that's when you can really start to own the room.
100%. It's a similar concept. And perhaps people who are watching have maybe spoken from a stage or behind a podium more often than they've been on video. So I'll phrase it in this way. If you go into a room and you're, giving a presentation or a speech, what you should do to sort of accommodate exactly what Kate is talking is divide the room up into quadrants. And then you're focusing on this quadrant for 10 seconds. You're looking the people in this room, connecting with one or two at eye contact, within that 10 seconds. And then maybe you move down here and you speak to this quadrant of the room for 10 seconds and you connect with a couple of people there via eye contact, right? And then, you go to but the point is, not only does it allow you to focus on specific people, if you're focusing on a specific quadrant of the room, you can sort of shut the rest out, and it almost makes the group seem a little bit smaller than it is. So it's a way of sort of getting inside your own head trash and flipping that narrative.
I want to throw out a thing, like this isn't so much for the speaker as the speakies. Try to be that person that connects with the speaker. Like it's hard, and I'm going to say, like, I'm the first one to admit that, like, I'm not always great at this, but like, be that person in the room that connects eyes with the speaker rather than just being on your phone, rather than being disconnected, rather, like, just be that person that with your eyes tells the speaker, you're doing a good job, keep it going, because that can make all the difference, and it takes nothing out of your day.
No, 100%. You're sort of like the buoy, right? So you're like the friendly space for whomever is on the stage. I'll never forget, I was in grad school and I was, obviously still terrified of public speaking, and I was giving a presentation on something that I didn't feel sure of. And there was one student, this is a long time ago, and I still remember her because I would look to her and she would smile and she would nod, and it boosted my confidence. And she was she knew what she needed to do, and I'm sure she did it for everybody. But My point is, absolutely, if you are in attendance, and I'm not perfect at it either, we're all compelled to check an email when we hear it coming in or whatever, but try and be that friendly face in a sea of unfamiliar faces. And if you're the speaker and you're in a group where perhaps you're not entirely familiar with everybody who's going to be in attendance, like to go a few minutes earlier than usual even, and spend some time connecting with like 3 or 4 people more deeply than you would on just like a regular networking thing. And then when you go out on the stage, as you're speaking, find those 3 or 4 people in the audience so that you know if you're having a moment where you're sort of losing it, you can find their faces, and because they have a connection with you, you'll likely get a smile and a nod, and that will bolster you through the rest of your speech. And you can have a little fun, you know, if you remember one of their names, and you might not because nerves and everything else, but you can see, Jennifer, I told you I was going to forget where I was going, and okay, now I'm back, right? Whatever it is that you need, you can have a little fun with the crowd that way as well.
That's got to be the best way to recover a flub I've ever heard in my life.
Oh yeah,
100%. But okay, so that piece about being the buoy. Okay, so I had a professor in college who used to do that. She would sit at the back of the room, smile, and do this. She would nod when you were giving a presentation or talking about a book or something. She would nod. And I loved that she did it. So I started to do it too. And I became a buoy in some of those rooms for some speakers. And you know what? The speakers were often so grateful that I would get like a shout out from the podium, like what you just said, Kerry, like, see Kate, blah, 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 Kate knows from NJBIA or whatever.
Yes.
And think about the power of that. If you're in a room with 300 people who do not know you, suddenly they have just heard your name, your company, maybe what you do. I mean, it's kind of good for you selfishly too. Be the buoy. It's good.
Be the buoy. Be the buoy. Help people keep their voices above water.
Be the buoy.
You know what? I train public speakers, but maybe I should train public speakees too.
We all need it. And I mean, like, nobody's ever going to be perfect. You catch me in the middle of like a multi-hour meeting or like, you know, something like that. And, you know, the energy level just naturally decreases during the day. But like, you know, I'm always thinking about it. So I'm at least always going to try, you know, and I think that's the pledge everyone should take.
It's funny. I had a speaking engagement on earlier this week, and somebody had asked me a question, which I thought I answered, and then I was in the middle of continuing the speech, and all of a sudden, like the bigger part of what I should have answered came to me, and I was like, hold on a minute. If I don't say this, I'm going to forget. And I went back and I'm like, you asked a question, but I only answered it halfway. The second part is, and I'm telling you, right as I went to say it disappeared again.
Yeah.
I'm like, hold on, it's gone again, but I'll keep and then it came to me as I was talking, and I'm like, it came to me, I'm gonna write it down so I don't forget, but I'm gonna keep the rest of the presentation going, and I'll come back to you with the answer. Like, you just have to sort of own it. I like to call mistakes personality showcases, because truly at the end of the day, those little moments, if you handle them well, you don't have to stumble all over yourself apologizing. Just handle them well. Have a little bit of, you know, self-deprecating humor, and like move on. And most people actually find those to be those become. We talk a lot about authenticity. That's sort of where that stuff lies.
We had a speaker at Women Business Leaders Council meeting back in September from PSE&G, I think. I can't believe I remember that. But she said something very similar, but just for regular life. She said, one of the most important things I learned in my career was that people were watching me as I had good news and as I received bad news and as projects fell apart and as we had wins. And the way that I reacted to all of that is not in a vacuum. People could watch me have a bad day and how that played out, and it affected my career. And she said, I wish I had learned that because somebody told me to be careful of that, not because I had a bad day and, you know, reacted badly to something in front of people more important than me. But you're absolutely right. It's the authenticity, it's memorability moments. It's it makes you so memorable when you handle it well.
That's 100%. If you handle it well, most people are not seeing the mistake. They see how you've shown on the recovery and they think to themselves, my gosh, I wish I could have handled it that well. You know, I sometimes think I put pressure on myself to be, you know, this perfect speaker. It's never, ever happened, not once. I've never had a perfect show. I've never had a perfect anything. But I think one of the greatest things is that if you can see somebody who is skilled in that area and realize that they still have mistakes and they navigate them in a memorable way and come out on the other side standing, that's the, you know, lesson for all of us. And it doesn't just apply to public speaking, it applies to anything. You know, it applies to whether you're having a business failure or you got fired or whatever it is, how you navigate it and come out on the other side. Were you able to, you know, make a lesson out of it, handle it well, whatever the case may be?
And somebody during our WBLF actually said, it's not about perfection, it's about grace. And I think that's a line that's going to stick with me forever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that's absolutely true. And not getting, you know, it's sort of the ego that gets in our head when it comes to all of that other stuff, and actually thinking like people care if we make a mistake. They don't care. They don't. That's your own inflated sense of self-worth or deflated sense of self-worth, one or the other, right? People don't really care about that stuff.
Exactly.
The only thing people really care about, and I'll say this honestly, like we said this a couple episodes ago, if you go on too long, that's the web place where people will be like, all right, wrap it up.
Exactly right. You'll start to see the feet tapping and like okay, you know, you got to take your cues from the audience and wrap that up.
Exactly.
I actually did have one other thing I wanted to ask you about.
Yeah.
COVID, you know, hit, and then like video became a really big thing.
Yeah.
Talk about that a little bit. Like, did you see more people asking you? Because now, like, I would say prior to COVID, the number of people who were, quote, on video, you know, it wasn't as nearly as many as the everyone and anyone afterwards.
Right. 100%.
Suddenly everybody had to be an expert in the stuff that you teach. How did that affect you?
Well, it was good. I mean, I hate to say like it was good. That sounds really insensitive. But if you're talking about strictly like a business perspective, excuse me, that was an opportunity for me. There's a lot of people who didn't recognize that video was important, and there's some that still don't. And you know, if that's where they are, they're at some point they're going to get overtaken by those coming up behind them who are already on that video marketing train. Again, it is the 24/7, 365, except on steroids, marketing equivalent of speaking. I mean, it is like, that's sort of the most standard, tried and true method of marketing your business and selling and marketing yourself, except that with digital, you can do it all the time, everywhere. You can reach a much larger audience. You can reach, you know, I mean, there's digital ads, there's webinars, there's master classes, there's social media content, there's blogs, there's website for your video. I mean, there's video for your website. There's digital courses, which is a huge area that I've started to dive into. So I've really taken my group coaching, my gosh, see, I'm making many of those mistakes that I referenced just a few minutes ago.
No one minded.
Taking a lot of my one-on-one clients and moving them into a group coaching environment. There's a lot to be said there for peer learning, for constant access in our private Facebook group, for challenges, advice, questions. Those are things that would not have been available if it were not for that sort of digital landscape. You know, we talk a lot about digital footprint. This is all of the stuff that builds your digital footprint. And then for digital courses, there's people who you know, are not in a position right now where they're ready to commit either time or financially to my services. A digital course allows them the opportunity to work, and it allows me the opportunity to serve and provide, but at a reduced fee and a sort of at a go at their own pace environment. So, you know, the digital course world is a $365 billion a year business. I mean, people are spending $1 billion a day on digital courses. And so, you know, I have a lot of clients who have digital courses in them, but are afraid to put them out because they're not comfortable with the camera element. You know, they want to do it behind slides. And I'm like, you are a B2B coach or consultant. You are client facing. Your face is the brand, or your name is on the side of the building or on the logo. You can't hide behind PowerPoints. You're doing yourself a massive disservice by speaking behind a slide. If the client rather is wanting to work with you, they need to see you, right? So I have a friend who does content, and she works one-on-one with individuals, and you need to do a course on content creation, because there's a lot of people who can't afford to work with you, but you can still provide them some value, right? So you sell this course for, you know, $300 or whatever it is. You meet a much larger audience that way. People who are just beginning to get their start can get some knowledge about content creation, and then they're at a place where they have the, you know, means to pay for you. You've already created a series of touch points with them. They already trust you because they've learned from you. And so it's just such a great way to build credibility and notoriety and bring in some extra revenue at the same time.
It's genius.
That's
Absolutely.
that's part of what COVID changed for me. I'd always wanted to do a course, but it sort of bumped up the timeline for me. It didn't sort of, it bumped it up a lot, actually.
Fair. So, Kerry, anything coming up that you'd like to promote?
Absolutely, thank you. So I'm launching my first group coaching cohort on January 4th. It is a 12-week program where we will have weekly hour-long group coaching sessions. We'll have critique, review, peer learning. There'll be access to the private Facebook group where we'll be doing video challenges, and I'll be there for virtual office hours as well for people who have questions in between sessions. There's a bunch of assets that go along with it, workbooks, worksheets, that sort of thing to help you follow along. If you are interested in checking that out, probably the easiest way to get a hold of me is to go to LinkedIn. I'm in a little bit of a rebrand right now, so my website and email are changing. You can always find me on LinkedIn or Instagram, either one of those. And if you follow me on any of my social media platforms, DM me and let me know that you followed me as a result of Other People's Business, the podcast, and I will enter you for a free chance to win a seat in one of the group coaching programs.
That's awesome.
Amazing.
There you go. Thank you. My pleasure.
So usually we ask people how they can get a hold of you. So how can they, I mean, you just said like LinkedIn and whatnot. Is there anything specific somebody should do to reach out?
LinkedIn or Instagram, you can find all of my contact information there. Like I said, because I'm going through the rebrand, there'll be a little bit of transition, and I don't want you to get lost in the shuffle. So DM me or shoot me a message on any of those platforms. I'm on LinkedIn and Instagram quite a bit. You can also find me on Facebook, on YouTube, on Twitter, a little bit on TikTok, not so much so. Don't depend on it. If you go there, you'll see a lot of videos that my daughter's posted. But for each platform that you follow me on, I'll enter you into the pot. So if you follow me on all 5, your name goes into the pot 5 times. But if you're just looking to reach out and get a little bit of strategy, LinkedIn is the way to go.
Very cool.
Fantastic. All right, I think that's the show. Thank you.
To be here. Thank you so
my
much
God.
for having me.
This was
Thank you.
phenomenal.
You guys are the
I
best.
just want to, you are the best. Thank you to our listeners, especially our subscribers. We so appreciate the support, and thank you for helping to celebrate our 100th episode. Thank you to New Jersey Manufacturers Insurance Group, the official sponsor of the show. They do home, auto, and workers' comp, so check them out. And finally, thanks to Kerry Barrett of Kerry Barrett Consulting for joining us today. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Congratulations. Bye.